subscribe.
So, we're in San Leandro at the Pioneer Cemetery. It's an old cemetery. I don't know the history on it. I'll try to find some links and put them in the video description down below. But this cemetery, we're going to fly the drones out over here and link that up, and you'll see it's a cemetery full of old, I mean from the 1800s tombstones and graves and wrought iron fencing and decorative ornamental iron and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool cemetery. And we'll fly out over and share that with you guys. So we're gonna fly the Phantom 4 Pro V2 with an iPad today, and we're gonna, once I drop all my cables on the ground and get them full of gravel, then I plug them back into the iPad. It helps improve connectivity. Not really, but we're gonna do this in 4K, 60 frames. The GoPro footage will be 4K, but it'll be 30 frames because this GoPro doesn't shoot in 4K. 60. Too bad. So excellent drone. I love the camera on this drone. I like this camera better on this drone than I do on the Mavic Pro 2. But the Mavic Pro 2, you know, it offers some things that this one doesn't, that I appreciate. I wish this camera was on the Mavic Pro 2. Man, that would be super. I'm gonna put on a CPL from a freewheel kit that I have. I'll link it in the description down below if you guys are looking for CPL filters, whether it's for the Mavic or the Phantom. They offer both. I have CPLs for the Phantom, and I have freewheel CPLs also for the Mavic Pro 2. And those freewheels, they come in a kit of circular polarizers with ND filters, and they come in a kit like this. It work really, really great. It's going to be perfect for a day like today, where I want to get a lot of that, cut through some of that haze and reflection on some of these bright colored or white granite tombstones and reflective wrought iron fencing and stuff like that. This will cut right through and bring out some of those colors, improve contrast. These are really nice to have, and they're easy to put on. Get your little lens cloth, wipe it down. Hey folks, I want to share with you today my visit to the Pioneer Cemetery in San Lorenzo. It's home to people who arrived to San Leandro and San Lorenzo back in the 1800s and, died in the late 1800s, early 1900s. But it's a really cool place full of history, and there's quite a few fun facts. I pulled up some data on the people who were buried here that it seems like I guess the city of Hayward put together about some of the deaths and how people died. And oh my gosh, I'll share that with you later. But let's take a look at some of this footage. I flew the Phantom 4 Pro V2 today because, honestly, I just love the camera. I have the Mavic Pro 2, but the camera on that one is nowhere near as excellent as this one. 60 frames a second is super nice. Look at this ornamental iron. Really, really pretty. Hand done. It's just really incredible, man. These gravestones are so old. We're going to look at some dates and names. It was really windy today, so forgive some of the footage. It's stable, but you can see the drone itself move quite a bit in the wind. And so I'll fly, and pause and wait for it, to stabilize and then and move in a little closer, you can see. But anyway, this is a really cool place. And it was the final resting place of settlers from around the 1800s to 1900s, and there's lots of symbolism in this cemetery also on the gravestones from fraternal orders of IOOF. Look at a piece of gate inside there. I don't know how that got there, but it's kind of cool. And that gate is old and rusty as can be, man. It's just pretty cool. There's IOOF. There's Masons. There's a fraternal order also called AOUW, Alpha Oscar Uniform Whiskey, which stands for Ancient Order of United Workmen. That's an interesting one. The cemetery is full of this type of fraternal orders. And there's an old Hennessy bottle, some old, decoration made into the metal fence there. The Hennessy bottle may or may not be original and dated. I don't know. Anyway, but it's a really cool cemetery to visit and learn about some of these people, where they came from. And I'll link some of these sources in the description of the video. And I'm not here to really give a history on the cemetery as much as just share with you how it looks inside and, just what a cool place it is to visit, and talk a little bit about the drone and how it handled in the wind and, just different things like that. Not really so much a history. There will be some history because it's just really cool, but I'm not a historian. All the information I'm getting is from links on the website, different websites and the internet. But that must have been, to be fenced in like that. I'm not sure if that was, it wasn't all one family in there, because I could see by the headstones, but there must be some significance to being in that fenced in area. Perhaps it was, location in the cemetery, at which, looking up on some of these cemetery plots, the fee was only $5. And so that was kind of cool to see. The fee is much higher now for a cemetery spot, but interesting to note. Now here on these stones here, EVA reads, Eva Stone reads, "A precious one from us has gone. A voice we loved is stilled. A place is vacant in our home which can never be filled." That's kind of cool. And then the father one reads, "'Tis hard to break the tender cord when love has bound the heart. 'Tis hard, so hard to speak the words we must forever part." And in order to get those words, I had to just kind of look it up on Google, and I had to adjust the exposure a little bit it was really, really faint. And I had to adjust that to make sure I could, figure out some of the wording, and then just type it into Google. And then actually those words, that phrase or that scriptures, or whatever it is, came up on Google. So it must be a fairly common one that people used and still use. So that's kind of interesting. But, just to look at some of this stuff, like, the stones are there, and then you have the outlining, like the little bricks around it. And I guess the coffin is below that. I don't know, but it's pretty neat, man. And then you've got Marlin here, and I looked them up on the sheet supplied by, it's a PDF document from, I think the city of Hayward did it. See, there's a Mason's symbol up there. It doesn't list the cause of death for Marlin, just the names and the dates. But it is a really pretty fixture. If we go all the way up to the top here, and you can see the drone going back and forth in the wind. I mean, the imagery is stable. The camera is stable, but the drone does move a lot in the wind. You can look back at the trees and see that it is pretty breezy out. We'll zoom in here and take a look and see. That is like a hooded figure, a robed figure. Just really cool looking, man. Just pretty neat to look and see. And it's stood there for quite a long time, and it's not, it's still standing strong. It's intact. And some of the most common causes of death for people in this particular cemetery, and I'm sure during this whole time period, are listed as consumption, TB, lung fever, drowning, strangulations. There was even a family of 4 run over by a train at Cherry Station, carcinoma, breast cancer. And those are some of the deaths, causes of death listed on the document that shows the people who are buried. It's called a list of internments, I guess. And those are some of the deaths that, some of the people in this cemetery, succumb to being run over, a whole family being run over by a train at the Cherry Street station. Wow, that's crazy. Bad day. Anyway, here's another really cool stone. It has the hand coming down, Anna B. And, I didn't see a cause of death for her listed. But I just thought it was a really cool stone, to take a look at. And then we'll zoom over here and you can see it's a pretty big place. They're doing some sort of, and have been doing some sort of, not a remodel, but a restoration or some kind of rehabilitation on this place to upkeep it so it's just not run down into the ground. And I think that's all done by volunteers. And there are people who get in here and break in and litter Hennessy bottles and litter stuff all around there, which is unfortunate and tragic. Fortunately, not many things look like they've been vandalized, but it's a really unique place to visit, and I would hate for people to get in there and just ruin it, because this all means something. It's early settlers of this time, people who lived hard and lived fast. Consumption, strangulations, gunshot wounds. There was one death in here where somebody was thrown from a wagon. Notice they didn't call it, I guess it wasn't called murder. The death was thrown from a wagon. There's my son's drone, the shadow of his Mavic Pro flying over me. And here's a couple other I don't know if those are unmarked. They're marked, but I don't know what the markings mean. I couldn't find anything on that. And the form, the PDF that the city put together on the people in this cemetery, it's like 26 pages or something. So feel free when you click on the link to read through all that if you want to. Here's a really cool little shield. And this is another one of those fraternal order, insignias, and what this one is the Ancient Order of United Workers, and I guess they relied heavily on the Freemason rituals and symbols. And it's interesting to note too that it later became known as Pioneer Mutual Life Insurance, and I don't know if they're still active, but somebody should Google that and see. But it's a really cool looking little symbol on there, and I had to Google that too. But like I say, there's lots of little fraternal order symbols in this cemetery. And you can see some of the prop wash kicking up the debris on the ground. I was flying this drone from anywhere from, 4 feet off the ground to, 15 feet off the ground, just depending on where I was in the cemetery itself. There was a altitude restriction here because there's lots of overlapping airspace from like Hayward Executive, Oakland, and there's quite a few overlapping airspaces in this area, and so I did have a restriction of 100 feet, which is way more than I needed anyway. I was only going to fly, like I say, 4 feet off the ground or so most of the time. But look at all these people, man, or all these markers. There might even be more people in there than there are markers. Who knows? So we're going to fly down here just to fly down here and see how large the cemetery is, but to have fun flying down the middle of this big dirt, obstacle-free runway. Because I'm like a kid, man, But that being said, this is a really big place, and I did not explore every headstone, every part of it, because there were a lot of trees and there was a lot of wind, and I did not want to get too close to some things because the wind really was pushing the drone around. But this is a really cool spot right here. I don't know, the stones must have fallen off of these. You can see right there where they would have originally been attached, and maybe the coffin box or whatever you call it was on top of there, or it's actually underground. I don't know. But this one here is big and it's open. And there's no body in it. Did he get out? I don't know. But it is another one of those fraternal symbol, grave markers here. This was the IOOF, and International Order of Oddfellow Rebecca's is what it was. And I know this symbol because as a kid, I stayed in a group home run by IOOF. So at any rate, it looks like the other pieces of the marker have fallen down on the inside of there. But, everything succumbs to time. The elements and the earth take everything back over. As we zoom around here and kind of look at the rest of the cemetery itself, there's some train tracks back there. It's all cleaned up pretty good. It's pretty free of, trash and things like that. You can see the prop wash there on the from the Phantom 4. That's one thing about the Phantom 4 is that, when you're flying with it, it does kick up a lot more than like if you did a Mavic Pro or something. So it's kind of cool. But I found it was the better drone for today because I wanted to use 60 FPS at 4K. And the Mavic Pro 2 that I have, it does 4K, but 30 FPS. I think the Mavic 2 Pro handles better in the wind because it's less of a profile for the wind to hit and push. But I wanted the 60 FPS at 4K. There is nothing on this shield here. I couldn't see any lettering or wording or anything. But I figured I'd zoom over here and take a look. But the shadow looks cool of the Phantom, right? So and I tried to change the contrast on here in Photoshop and take a look and see what was on this shield, but I couldn't bring any depth out to see what markings might have been on here. But it's still cool nonetheless. Some people have these big markers, some have these small ones, some have little book-shaped ones. I guess it's whatever you had in your budget. But you can see how low I am to the ground right here. Look, we fly right over the top of that little marker, and we're cruising around pretty low. This headstone here, it looks like they like raised it up or something. It's a different kind of rock on the bottom. I don't know, but it's pretty washed out. Maybe time and water have, sort of made the markings a little less prominent on there, kind of washed them away a little bit. But look at all this back here. It's pretty. It really is. Some of these structures are so pretty. And there was my son's Mavic Pro. There it is again. Photo bombing me. Anyway, dipping in and out of the frame. But at any rate, this cemetery, it runs right along the freeway there, the 238 and connector right there. And the train tracks are back there. And everybody that's local, knows where this place is. But I just decided to fly it with the drone and check it out in a way that, you can't really get to it walking around it right now. So this is kind of a cool thing to share with you folks. Those are just like walkway stones or something. There's no markings on them, no words or any symbols or anything like that. We'll fly around here and check out this little book. These two people don't seem to be related in any way. Katie McPherson, mama. Okay, so she was a mama. And the name on the headstone next to this book is not the same last name or anything. So my guess is they're not related just because they're in the same little box right there. They're not related. But interesting to note, this guy here is from Rhode Island, and there are so many people in this cemetery here from, Ireland. There's people from Germany, Switzerland, from all over, places that you really had to travel to get here. And back in the day when they came and they had to do all that traveling, it wasn't like you hop on, Southwest Airlines for 70 bucks and, or whatever. Back then it was a lot rougher. There's my son's Phantom or Mavic Pro up there again. This next place we're going to go to is pretty neat. I used to think this was like a bed frame box spring around the grave marker, but apparently it was just another type of boundary to go around the burial site. Some of them had like little low bricks. Some of them had concrete bed frame looking type markers around them, and this one here is just metal that's just gone away over time. I mean, this thing is barely intact anymore, but it looks so cool and so creepy. You could totally do like a King Diamond music video here or something, Anyway, King, if you're listening, there you go, man. But this stone here is two hands shaking, and this guy here was from Canada. So it says a native of Coburn, Canada, and then he wasn't very old either. He was 19 years old. No, aged 12 years. 12 years old. That was a short life. There are some people here that died in a factory accident. There's a couple of them here that shared the same death in a factory accident. And you can look that up on the link that I put in the video description also. There's just a lot of cool little tidbits of information to find out about when you examine this whole little area. If you're willing to get on Google and do a little bit of research, you can find some really cool little facts out about this place. None of the markers that I visited died by any causes that were, listed. So perhaps some of the other ones, back in the further corners or different parts of the cemetery that I didn't get a chance to fly over were some of the names that, showed drownings or strangulations or consumption. These people here that we visited today, these markers didn't have a cause of death listed on that PDF file that I'll link in the description of the video. This is another really cool one. It always reminded me of kind of like a little playpen or a crib, man. Kind of creepy. Anyway, folks, like and subscribe. I hope you had a good time sharing this video with me. Take care, and we'll see you next time.